Hi, my name is Allen McPheeters, and I am the chair of the Island County Republican Party. Welcome to our Republican candidate interviews for 2020. This series of interviews features 5 candidates endorsed by the ICRP. In the 10th Legislative District, we have Senator Ron Mazzal and Greg Gilday and Bill Bruck running for state representative positions 1 and 2, respectively. Also, in Island County, we feature 2 candidates for county commissioner, Damian Greene in District 1 and Commissioner Jill Johnson running for a re-election in District 2. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to invite you to become a member of the Island County Republican Party. Members receive our monthly Central Committee meeting packet, which includes reports from the chair and treasurer, news from the Washington State Republican Party and Republican National Committee, and information about candidates, elected officials, and upcoming events. Members also receive invitations to special member-only events, such as our interviews last September with applicants for the appointment to replace retiring state senator Barbara Bailey. Memberships start at $30, and higher-level memberships include tickets to our annual fundraising dinner. For more information, go to islandcountygop.com/membership. For this interview, we met with Damian Greene, a candidate for Island County Commissioner. Island County, like most counties in Washington, has a 3-member Board of Commissioners, each elected from a commissioner district. The Board of Commissioners is the legislative authority in the county and is also the principal administrative authority for the county government. Mr. Greene is running in Commissioner District 1, which is comprised of Central and South Whidbey. This interview was recorded on July 3rd. Okay. Hi, Damian. Thanks for sitting down with me to talk about your campaign for Island County Commissioner in District 1. Would you like to start with maybe 5 minutes of an opening statement?
Sure. Good morning, Alan, and I appreciate this opportunity to address everybody here. I am Damian Greene. I'm running for Island County Commissioner District 1, which is a very large territory. We go from Monroe Landing up there by the Blue Fox Drive-In and Hasty Lake Road south all the way to the Clinton Ferry Dock. I'm running on my basic philosophy, which is to improve our quality of life here in Island County without increasing your financial burden. And I have ideas and ways to do that on my website at electdamian, DAMIAN.com. I was raised here on Whidbey Island, which you would also see in some of my videos and on my website. But my dad was a state trooper, and we were moved here in 1965 when I was like 3.5, 4 years old. And so I've been raised here and just love the island. I love Whidbey Island, and I love its people. I love the spirit that we have here and the way that we help and take care of each other. And so I'm taking on that challenge to continue it on as your Island County Commissioner, to be a good steward, which is another thing that I like to look at, is taking care of what we have before we move on to something else. And that goes back to my time as getting involved with the South Whidbey School District. I did something that wasn't very popular. I stood up against a school bond for 4 new classrooms and a new gym and a proposed tax of $25 million to the people of the South Whidbey School District. And that failed by a huge majority, like 64% of the people voting no. And it was quite evident as to why. So that stance I took, in being out there by myself, people understood that we weren't going to need to spend this tax, as well as increase our carbon footprint. We just waited patiently for the student enrollment, which was decreasing, to continue to decrease. We'd be able to just slowly consolidate the students over as time went on. And as we did that, and as things were, as we were learning how to develop and go against decreased funding, proposed some new ideas to the school district, which was renting out facilities. And so we moved the district office and moved it down to the transportation facility, and we rented the district office out. And then from there, it grew. So now we have this full-fledged community center at the old Langley Middle School, that is generating, with all the facilities we're renting out, over $300,000 a year in annual income, which is just a huge bonus to the district. But it was a way to mitigate decreasing funding and look at new ways of doing that. Additionally, some of the things I brought when I got involved in the actual election and became a school board member was looking at our energy upgrades, because the school system hadn't had an energy upgrade forever. And by doing that, we implemented the ability to save ourselves $125,000 a year in energy costs. And so that's another huge thing. So I bring these new ideas that I feel that we could use at the county level, especially since we're going to be seeing the decrease in revenue through the loss of sales and gas tax revenues. And we can definitely mitigate that. I have some ideas for that too. But I also have, in the last 10 years being on the school board, taken permanent stances as a conservative, being the only one, working really well though with my counterparts, and being able to work together, especially since it is a nonpartisan position. But I have stood firm about the raises for the superintendent, for example. The last raise went from 170,000, I'm going to paraphrase or rough guess, to 195,000, which is more than what our governor makes or what our United States congressmen, including United States senators, make. It's even more than what our county Superior Court judges make. And so I was not in support of that, because it's still a government position, a government role. And I think that's what led me to this spot here running for Island County Commissioners, because I stand firm for conservative values and I hold true to those. And so that's why I've decided to run for county commissioner. But I should add one more thing. So in the 10 years that I've been on the school district, we have seen this outdoor classroom that we have, which now been renamed the Reading F Outdoor Classroom. And I don't know if you've been there, but people from all over the state, especially schools from all over the state, come to our outdoor classroom down in the Max Welton watershed. And they learn a lot about environment and everything else. But one of the things our own students do is they raise salmon fry throughout the year. And then they take their salmon fry down to the Max Welton Creek in the spring and they let them go in the hopes of seeing the salmon return. But in the last 15 years, there's been diminishing returns because there's some environmental issues happening there with things from the beaver and blocked culverts and just, you know, all the different entities involved. But I haven't seen any salmon come back, and we used to see that. And so I have a desire to repair the Max Welton watershed, especially as it pertains to the outdoor classroom, because there's people down there in the Max Welton Valley who are losing their property to an undesired wetland. And then that takes me full circle to the whole entire county, because now the Department of Ecology has some areas that are not wetlands or are not streams that are designated on Google as being streams and so forth. So I think we need to start looking at things like that from a new perspective and fixing things at the county level. And I think that's really where it comes down to, is that there's things that we see that need to be paid attention to and fixed. And so that's why I'm running for Island County Commissioner, so that I can improve our quality of life without increasing our financial burden.
That is very interesting. You just said a lot of things I didn't know about the south part of Whidbey Island, because I live in Oak Harbor and I don't get that down that way as much as I might like. One of the things we're going to circle back to some of those things, but one of the things I wanted to ask you about is you have work experience with Washington State Ferries, and you are currently an engineer with BNSF Railway. So my thinking is that transportation is an area that you are going to have some particular insight into as an Island County Commissioner. What do you think are the key transportation issues facing Central and South Whidbey, and what do you think we need to do to fix them?
I think it's actually the whole Island County, Alan, because really part of this transportation plan that I have extends to Camano Island. And they're part of Island County and they're within our community. And so here's what I see. So let me give you some background. I started with the Washington State Ferries as a sophomore in high school, and I worked with them and through college days at Central Washington University. And then I became an insurance agent for 27 years. And then I wanted to do something completely different. Kids were grown and everything else. So I started looking at different things. I'm a pilot, so I applied at Boeing. And of course, everybody has an affinity for trains. I applied at BNSF and so forth. And 500 people applied for the job at BNSF and they hired 10. And I'm grateful that I was able to get that job. And in that 5 years I've been there, I've been promoted now to a locomotive engineer. And one of the things that I've seen is that I go basically from Tacoma to New Westminster, Canada, as well as from Seattle over to Wenatchee. And so when we go on these long distances, we do have rest periods and stay in hotels and so forth. But when you're down in Tacoma, you see the sounder running all these people, lots of sounder trains taking all these people that work for Boeing to Kent, Renton, and then Seattle. And we come up north here and the sounder train starts in Mukilteo and goes south, 4 or 5 times a day. It's not as useful, but yet we also have railroad tracks that go right from the Washington State Ferry System's new terminal being built that goes straight on up the hill, which is called Japanese Gulch, to Boeing. And a lot of people walk right alongside the tracks. There's trails there and everything else. It's not really that far. And so, and as you continue on, we have that platform there in Mukilteo. We have a Amtrak station there in Everett, as well as a sounder station. And then you go north. There's not a platform in Marysville, although there's lots of room to put one in and parking. Stanwood, though, has one, which is Camino Island. And Stanwood stops and picks up people for Amtrak. And then there's one up in Mount Vernon as well. And so if you look at that and you start thinking, well, why can't we do like what they're doing on the south end and implement sounders that come from Mount Vernon all the way south and bring those people who are working in Everett? They can get off in Everett. They can come to Mukilteo, and our employees from the island that work at Boeing can easily get on a sounder that takes them up to the hill to work at Boeing. As well as then once we get there, we're looking at just a 1 mile connection to Payne Field and light rail. And then the light bulb goes off again and you go, wait a minute. Rail infrastructure is fairly inexpensive. It's about $1 million a mile. That doesn't include the engineering and so forth that goes with it. But now if we get to Payne Field and the light rail comes there, there's this whole world that opens up for transportation. And so when I look at that portion of it, that's how the railroad and the state ferries tie in together for me, with helping people get to and from work, both from Camino Island and in South Whidbey and Central Whidbey. I know that we have Boeing people as well. And I actually know that we have people that live on the north end and they drive all the way around to go to work for Boeing. So if we take that one more step further, Boeing has mandatory overtime for people. And then we also have people who may work in the medical industry, like doctors and nurses, or people in the transportation industry, pilots and flight attendants. And then we have people who are just travelers, and they need to catch an early flight in the morning, or they're coming home late on a flight and it doesn't come back. Or we have the Whidbey SeaTac shuttle, and it doesn't pick people up from the south end to go early in the morning. It goes from the north end and goes on around. And so if we were to look at this ferry system that currently we have had in place for eons, there's always been somebody working on the ferry at night here in case there's a hospital emergency. And in the old days when I was a young person, we didn't have the hospital until 72. So the ferries would actually, take people over to the mainland to have babies. And one of my friends actually was almost born on the ferry. But anyway, we look at that and we go, okay, the Tokate, for example, has a crew of 13 people on board. And in the smaller ferries, like something named the Hayu, which was a 35-car ferry, only needed a crew of 5. So you could actually bring back something like that Hayu, and if you only had 10 cars on board, you'd still be, a third full, or definitely 25% full. And I think a lot of people who would go, hey, wait a minute, I wouldn't mind giving an extra $5 as a late night tariff just to get me to and from the airport. But it also opens up for all sorts of transportation, because we could do that through the night with a small ferry and that crew, and then not lose any employees out of the deal, because we could implement running that extra ferry during peak hours to move another 70 cars an hour on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And so it's cost neutral as far as employees go with their jobs, but it's opportunity for people here. And I think that opportunity allows people to move here and work elsewhere, because let's face it, not Whidbey Island's not going to be able to afford or provide work for everybody, but we have a lot of commuters, and there are a lot of them. So that's kind of where my transportation issues are, is that if we could have that opportunity for people to access a 24-hour ferry system and not close down a major highway 525, I think it's a benefit. It's a win-win for everybody. And meaning that if we can bring younger families to the island, we're going to then have more kids in school, and school districts like South Whidbey and Coopville would be able to increase their student population. That would bring an increase in funding for them, which would then, of course, generate opportunity for more teachers and more programs, and brings life. The kids bring life. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I see. Very good. Well, I like the idea. I have in my regular job, not these days because of all the restrictions on being out of your house, but I regularly travel for work via SeaTac, and I've been on that SeaTac shuttle, and it is no picnic. Taking that early ferry or early shuttle that goes around through the north end. One other thing I wanted to ask you about is that you are running as a Republican. So first, tell us why you're a Republican, and then maybe I think people have a really clear idea on what being a Republican means at the federal level and maybe even at the state level. But what does it mean? How does being a Republican impact how you would be an Island County Commissioner?
That's a great question. I think for me, it's kind of like what I've been doing on the school district and the school board, and as an Island County Republican, as I said, I'm for increasing your quality of life without increasing your financial burden. I think we can do that, and I'm not about taxes, and I'm certainly not about big pay raises for people and so forth. The other things that make me a Republican is that I believe in property rights, so long as what you're doing is not affecting somebody else, polluting their groundwater, for example. The other things I believe in are our freedoms and our ability to the Second Amendment, carry guns, but at the same time, I'm a believer in law enforcement. I support law enforcement, and the consensus right now that we're going through with all this stuff, I find it very disturbing, and I hope it comes to an end here soon, because those first responders, they were there for us on 9/11, and they'll be there again for us, so long as we continue to provide that opportunity for them. I just can't see us not having good, solid law enforcement. So I believe in the rule of law, and I think that's where I come from as a Island County conservative, is that it's not that I don't understand the other side. It's just that I don't necessarily agree with some of their philosophies, and that's why I'm an Island County conservative, because I align more with the Republican Party than I do with the Democrat Party.
That might be a good segue to something that we received from a supporter, and I shared this with a little bit earlier, but if we can expand on it, I think that would be great. Let me show you the screen here. So, and this is a statement we received maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. This is a letter that was sent out by the Indivisible Whidbey group in South Whidbey. And it says, this week, Indivisible Whidbey will consider endorsing one of the 2 Democrats running in District 1, Melanie Bacon and Nathan Howard. The only candidate we'll consider endorsing in District 2 is Democrat Fee Michaud. These races are important to our goal of fighting racism and preventing police violence against people of color if we're looking for increased oversight over our sheriff's office, or perhaps changes in the laws providing immunity for police misconduct, or even defunding county law enforcement, then we might turn to our county commissioners to legislate these changes. And I think we kind of already established with what you said that this is not an approach that you would take. But talk a little bit more about where you think that these guys are getting it wrong.
Somewhere along the lines, I think people have started to misunderstand the police and or started to teach that the police are the bad guys. And I think in teaching that the police are the bad guys, oh, they're following me, they're going to give me a ticket or whatever, is the wrong approach. Like I said, I grew up in law enforcement. And so where I'm headed here is this. The law enforcement officers that we have, we need to get back to respecting them. They do a difficult job. And they may not even necessarily be paid what they should be paid for that job of putting their life on the line on a regular basis. I can say, though, that Dave Hayes, former Legislative District 10 representative, in dealing with certain things that law enforcement have to deal with, such as domestic calls, there's people with mental health issues. And Dave wanted to see, as a sheriff of Snohomish County, those people get immediate medical attention and not just necessarily be locked up. So I understand that portion of it. But justice in our county should not be colorblind at all. And I don't think we have any colorblindness here in this county. If we do, then we need to take care of it. But it should be colorblind. And as far as that statement that they're making, I want to
interrupt you there because I think I misunderstood what you said. So,
okay.
You think we don't have color blindness in this county, or you think that the justice is currently being administered in a colorblind fashion?
Correct. Okay. I think that this county is doing exactly what the law provides for everybody equally.
Okay.
I guess I'd have to see actual. Yeah, no, it's okay. If I said it wrong, I want to make sure it comes out right. Yeah. Sometimes, like everybody, we misspeak or, but yeah, I just don't agree 100. I don't agree with that statement of tearing the system down. Basically, is what I feel. Defunding the police is like tearing our system down and rebuilding it. And I just don't. I haven't seen the plan of what the rebuilding plan is, but they certainly want to take it apart. So that's what I'm really getting out of that. And I'm a supporter of law enforcement and justice for all equally. So,
okay. One of the issues that you talk about on your website is growth, and I think we've kind of touched on that with some of the things you're talking about in transportation. But you mentioned the need for growth in the Freeland area and the issue of how do you put in or handle having a sewer system down there. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. So Island County has one non-municipal urban growth area, and that is Freeland. And by the Growth Management Act, to be a non-municipal urban growth area, you're supposed to have a sewer system. This has been enforced now for years, and Freeland does not have a sewer system. And it's time to look at some things there to allow the growth in Freeland, and that would be one, to get a sewer system and maybe look at outside alternatives being used in an underdeveloped country that we could maybe implement here in Freeland. Two, connect Freeland, if possible, to the system existing already in Langley. And if not, then we move to option three, which is consider removing Freeland from a non-municipal urban growth area, and then looking at something like maybe down here on the south end anyway, as far as Bayview or Clinton, which are a lot closer to Langley to tie into that system, or they have easier access, I believe, to especially Clinton, a deep water affluent dispersal system. And so, plus Clinton has the Clinton Water District, and And so if we need that non-municipal urban growth area, then we should be looking at that so that we can now take that and provide growth for business and affordable housing, multiplexes and so forth, so that we can start moving people into new areas for business opportunities and housing opportunities. And so that's why I referenced that whole thing with the urban growth area there in Freeland. If it's not going to have sewers, then it shouldn't have that classification. And by growth management, if we're supposed to have at least one spot like that classified in the county, then let's look at alternatives. I hope that made sense to you.
Sure. Actually, I think the Growth Management Act is probably one of the biggest challenges that county commissioners face. I spent some time on the Oak Harbor Planning Commission. Are there changes that we need to lobby for in the Growth Management Act that would help ease up some of the problems we have with building additional growth in Island County?
I definitely believe that to be true, but I am like you, a guy that works and may not have all the opportunities available to understand every detail of that. Just like when I got on the school board, I didn't understand necessarily every policy there is, but I certainly have learned and was a fast learner actually when it came to learning school district policies and so forth. So that would be the same thing there. I believe that once I dig into it on a daily basis, yeah, I'm going to find what we need to do and be more exact. And I can rely on other people in this county that have that experience as well. And by having all the contacts in the county, I'm able to draw on a lot of people's insight. And I like that ability to have collaborative thinking, not group think, but collaborative thinking, and to solve problems in a unilateral basis. And, you know, I was watching the Democrat town hall between Mishko and Nathan Howard and then Lewis. And one thing that they happened to mention that I found very interesting was that they happened to say that compromise means you're all losers. And I don't agree with that philosophy either, because yes, in compromise, somebody has to give up something, and they're giving it up from both sides, and you find that nice meeting in the middle that everybody can live with and be happy. But if you can't reach compromise just because, and you won't give in on compromise because you're losing, then that's what's creating this deadlock, and we're not getting anywhere. So compromise is a win. It's a win for both sides. It doesn't mean both sides are losing. It means that we're coming to a mutual agreement here to move forward. And I think compromise is a win-win rather than a lose-lose. So that's how I look towards government.
I couldn't agree more. And I have been in the past a big fan of the work of Dr. Stephen Covey in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he talks about that a great deal. Another piece of what he talks about there is seek first to understand and then to be understood. And in that town hall that you were watching, and I watched some of it too, I noticed that there's a big push among the progressives in Island County to have more youth involved in politics and maybe having the greater say. And it feels like there's not much of a seek first to understand issue behind that. In fact, I alluded to before we started recording, there's a great quote by Chesterton, the British editorialist, in which he says, he's talking about people who are reformers. Let's say you have a gate across a road, and the reformer comes in and says, we need to tear down this gate. I don't see what the purpose of it is. And Chesterton's response to that was, I will consider letting you tear down this gate if you can tell me why it was put up in the first place. So you have been involved in governance in Island County for 10 years on the school board. I think you have a sense of why things have been put there in the first place. But can you talk more about why these kinds of approaches that we're hearing from the progressive side are problematic?
Yeah, actually, I'll use a recent one with the school board. So there's there's this growing movement now to remove any resource officers from school districts. Now, South Whitby School District doesn't have a resource officer, but last fall, we had a situation where we had a threat, and it was considered a viable threat. And we needed law enforcement, and I'm glad that they were there to show up for that school threat. So if we start removing resource officers because of the claim that students, it gives them anxiety and stress, well, what kind of anxiety and stress then is created by not feeling safe by not having them? So it's an interesting discussion that's happening right now, and it's happening throughout the country. But I'm sure you're aware, Edmond School District just voted to remove their school resource officer. And I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but from my perspective, there's a reason why that law enforcement officer is there in the first place. And I can think of a lot of good reasons why he's there in the first place. So you're absolutely right, Alan. It's to ask those questions so that we understand more deeply that we're not reinventing the wheel here. Sometimes we're going backwards and we don't even understand our step backwards. So yes, I agree wholeheartedly. And that's about the best example I can give you is what's going on right now is to remove the school resource officers. And I would not be in favor of that if we had one. And even though we don't have one, I don't want to change the policy so that we can't bring a law enforcement officer onto campus when needed. So,
and it's ironic because Edmonds is right near Mukilteo, and Mukilteo just had that shooting not too long ago, and we've had shootings in other places as well involving teens. We're coming up to the end of our time. So first, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us today. I really appreciate it. If some of the viewers want to get involved in your campaign, it's the best way for them to reach out to you at your website, electdamian.com.
Yes, and I would love to have as many volunteers as we can get to help with the campaign. As you know, there's 6 people running in Island County District 1, and I can take all the help that we can get. So yes, reach out to us at info@electdamian is my email, and our website is electdamian.com. Yes.
Right. And one of the other things I will say is I think that you probably have on your website all those little short videos you've been doing, usually a minute or 2 minutes long. I think those have been really terrific. So
thank you, Alan. I appreciate that. I think the longest one is like 2 minutes and 42 seconds, but most of them are really short. And I try to make them somewhat educational too. I don't know if you've caught on to that, but I try to be informative to kind of give a background to certain things and so forth. So yeah, they go from the fire department all the way to Tokatay the whale and, good stewardship. So yeah.
Outstanding. Great. Well, thank you very much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for the time.
You bet. That was our interview with Damian Greene, running for County Commissioner in District 1. Here's the address for his website. And here are the websites for all our featured candidates. For more information about the Island County Republican Party, go to our website at islandcountygop.com. Thank you for watching.